So yeah, welcome. My name is Roger Klemm. I'm the instigator and primary caretaker of the Sunland Welcome Nature Garden, which we ripped out fountain grass that the city had put in a decade prior and planted what my inspiration was the best of our local native flora. The intent was to showcase those plants, those native plants locally that were still reasonably good looking in the middle of summer. Native plants have a reputation for being ratty looking in the and I said, you know, not all of them are. Let's fill a garden with stuff that's going to look decent. And so that's what I did. Because it was yeah, I'm the instigator, but a lot of people helped me. So this is on a very busy corner. It's Sunland Boulevard, right at the 210 freeway. And this is the primary garden, and this is a secondary place that we call the Wildflowering Annex. It's a very busy corner, and Sunland Boulevard is just, there's traffic all the time. And it's amazing that even with all of that traffic, there's still wildlife there. So this is what it looked like before. Their fountain grass was basically invading the whole space, including obscuring the sign. And working its way into the rock work, the decorative rock work. Over the course of 3 weekends in March of 2013, so 10 years ago, we being like 40 and 50 volunteers from the community, ripped out the fountain grass and planted our local native plants. The next year we participated in an art program called the Wildflowering LA program, and that turned out to be kind of a bust because the place that this spot that we used was so full of weeds that and it was a dry year, so there were basically no wildflowers. But we got our start and we did some solarizing on the slopes and planted shrubs on the top bench, and it's been a beautiful place. We did some other work along the way. We replaced the signs that the city had put in with ones that we, the community, designed. And this is in the San Fernando Valley, city of Los Angeles, which has an Adopt a Median program. And under that program, we were able to, with the neighborhood council, adopt this parcel. And we had a proposal, we had some landscape drawings, and this is what we're going to do. We went and did it. And part of our proposal was change the signs, and the city approved it. Cool. Then another thing we did on this Wildflowering Annex, we put in some decorative borders and reworked the slope. And so what does it look like today? Well, up front here, there's wand buckwheat has kind of taken over this front area. It wasn't supposed to, but it has. Slender sunflower, there's an Eastwood manzanita, whole bunch of stuff. And here's what it actually looks like overhead. And I thought it was interesting that here's what it was before, where just these, you can see the little bitty dots of fountain grass, not much there. And here's all of our plants that have filled in. And if you look in the before, this section here, which is basically an area in front of a couple of oak trees, is now filled in with native plants. So basically we're creating habitat. We have created habitat, and Google Maps even knows that we're there. Sunland Welcome Nature Garden. That Wildflowering Annex that before was just literally a weed patch, now is some local, some low-growing shrubs, local versions of plants at the top, and then some wildflowers. So it's now a neat place. And one of the things that that's been really gratifying to me with the native plants is seeing in action the interactions between the plants and the insects and the birds and the other animals, the lizards. So as I mentioned, it's this incredibly busy corner. Basically, it's the community entrance and freeway entrance, main street, lots of traffic all the time. And yet there's bees, there's lizards, there's butterflies, there's other things. It's really neat to see the wildlife there because of what we've planted. So yeah, plant it and they will come. That's the way the native plants work. The native plants support the native insects, which support the birds and the lizards and everything else in the ecosystem. So plants are foundational and the native ones support the wildlife. With the incredible snowstorms we had this winter, I just had to go and take a few pictures of Mount Lukens at 5,000 feet, which is our local highest hill mountain that's right in view of the garden. And I want to back up. I kind of forgot to mention that kind of the motivation for the garden was the best of our local native plants. Well, I went and collected seeds and cuttings and propagated basically everything that's in the garden. And it was a fun experience for me. And I did that in part because as I looked at what is it going to take to renovate that landscape, it's you know, basically the size of a residential lot, except there's no house there. So it's, you know, 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of land. It's going to take a lot of plants. And I kind of added it up and went, you know, I'm either going to have to do a lot of fundraising, which I'm not good at, or hey, I could grow the plants myself. Okay, that I can do. So I invested in some pots and materials and supplies, and I had fun growing plants myself. And so my goal for this garden was to showcase the local plants, and so I collected seeds and cuttings, some of them actually with permission, and basically stuff in the side of the trail. If it's hanging over the trail, the way I look at it is it's not going to be viable. The seeds are going to fall and they're not going to go anywhere. So anyway, and a couple here and there. And so if I look up at the top of Mount Lukens, there are two plants in the garden, Scarlet Bugler, Penstemon centranthifolius, and Grinnell's Penstemon, Penstemon grinnellii, that I collected seeds from a ridge just on this side of Mount Lukens. So I can look up the mountain and go, hey, these plants are from there. And basically everything else in the garden is essentially from pretty much line of sight from the garden. That's my kind of paradigm for it. And it turns out to be basically a sea of California buckwheat, because that's the most successful plant in the garden. And it's actually I'm now to the point where I'm pulling out buckwheat seedlings because they grow places where I don't necessarily want them. And as a gardener, you do editing, and so you have to pull out things here and there. And then there's other things for punctuation: the white sage, the California sagebrush, the penstemons. And I've even been able to propagate some woolly blue curls and even some bush poppy and ceanothus and all of those kind of things that make the garden biodiverse. And so it's been wonderful, and I hope to keep doing it for quite some time. I think that's it. Question?
Questions, I'm gonna have fun.
Pardon? Okay, good question. The question was, what do I do for irrigation? And the answer is that the hardscape was already there, and we were fortunate to be able to work with the irrigation system that was already in place. There were rotators in one place and rainbird pop-ups in another, and we were able to just use it. It worked. I've replaced a couple of sprinklers along the way, but and the city ended up having to replace valves. Fortunately, the city has been kind to me and has done the big maintenance that needed to happen. There was a couple of times when either a valve broke or got vandalized, and they came and fixed it. So the heavy lifting, they still do, even though under the terms of the Adopt a Median program, we're responsible for it. So yeah, the hardscape was already there. I didn't have to change the hardscape. All I did was change plants. City of LA. Yes. And somehow we're not finding how to get out of this. Ah, here we go.
Roger,
Yeah.
I have a question on the chat. Carol Bornstein asked, what does the Form LA sign say?
Ah, so that Form LA sign is the that is our sponsor sign, and Form LA is the is a local landscape firm that donated the design services. So with the Adopt a Medium program with the city, we needed a landscape plan, and Form LA was kind enough to donate their services to put that plan together. So they did the landscape drawings that we were able to take to the city and apply for and do the adoption program. Ah, in the back. Yes. This is the project where I learned that Manzanita are fire followers. So are ceanothus, so are bush poppies, so are woolly blue curls, a bunch of other plants. And the seeds of Manzanita require smoke to germinate. And I've conducted a bunch of experiments and my results were all over the map, but some of them actually germinated. So that was fun. Bush poppies, I was talking before, there's I'm having fun with that too.
Have you used liquid smoke?
Yes, liquid smoke.
Could you repeat the question?
Sorry. Thank you. The question was, do I use liquid smoke? And yes, liquid smoke. I do not burn things for my propagation purposes. I think no. Sorry. Yes, you have a question. Sorry.
Karen, I know it doesn't need a lot of care, but.
Okay, so the question was about care and upkeep, and what I'm looking for here is the next slides, and I'm not seeing them, so I'm going to have to. No, that's Paulina Bowman's. So the question was about care and upkeep. Basically, I am there about once a week. I at least go around and pick up trash because it's a busy place. It's an urban environment. You get trash. Also have homeless people, so occasionally I have to make things disappear. And occasionally we've had to talk to people and convince them to move on. But as far as the plants upkeep, basically I do weeding and occasional trimming. And that's it. As far as watering goes, I try to keep things somewhat hydrated in the summer. So approximately once a month, so every 4 weeks or so, I turn the irrigation on. That being said, I also, for the sake of the valves, have it go on for like a minute 3 times a week, because apparently the valves like to be exercised. So whatever. So another question.
How did you know who to contact whom at the city to start the cooperation or partnership or permit?
Yeah. Okay. The question was, how did I know who to contact at the city? And I happened to know the council member's field deputy at the time, and they were the ones that connected me with the Adopt a Median program. So basically, talk to your local council person, and they would be, in whatever jurisdiction you are, your local council, your local representative, somebody in their office should know of programs like this if they exist. Are there questions on chat, or are we caught up there?
Yes. One of the questions from Carol is, are the plants labeled?
Question was, are the plants labeled? Unfortunately not. That's a project I have not gotten around to. And I know people have asked me about that, and I need to, I want to, and I just, yeah.
So awkward that she's a part of the Lights of Grant.
Okay, another question. Question was about how long it took the fountain grass to stop disappearing. Yeah. The majority of it, basically fountain grass has very shallow roots and there aren't that much of them. So you can basically with a pickaxe or a shovel, dig it out and it doesn't come back. What I found was for the next year or two, we'd have a few seedlings here and there. And beyond that, it's been fine. So it really, for as obnoxious and invasive as it is, if you can get in there in a location like this and physically hack it out, it's not a big problem. Okay. Okay, so who's next?
Should be on Firefox.
It should be, and I'm not seeing it.
If it's not, let's just reopen it.
Open with Firefox.
Yes, nice.
And here we will enable presentation mode.
We can't. We have to go to our, oh, maybe we can. Go to the here and see if it'll let you open that. The little arrow. There you go. Now we'll share. I'll do this.
Share screen. We should be able to. Oh, that's right. Because we got it. Okay.
And I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping here, and I know there's a make this bar go away thing. Hide. Thank you. There it is. And there's nothing like doing this stuff right in front of everyone. One thing when you're on Zoom and they can't see you just like this. Okay, so our next speaker is Barbara Eisenstein, and she is the past horticulture chair for this chapter for many years. She did that and ran the plant sale, which was amazing because the rest of us just only had to do what she said. But she has been also for the past 17 years, also the instigator and primary caretaker of the Friends of South Pasadena Nature Park. And they have a monthly community cleanups and work parties. And they took a damaged piece of land and turned it into coastal sage scrub. And so this is another wonderful example of community stewardship.
Oops. Thank you, and thank you for making all this work. I take it I just use the arrows to proceed. Okay, very good. So, yep.
Keep talking.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about the South Pasadena Nature Park. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is that that's not actually the name. So here you go. The name is longer. It's South Pasadena Arroyo Seco Woodland and Wildlife Park. I think I've got that right. So anyway, and today what I'm going to talk to you about is what happened after the park opened. I'm not going to give you a whole big history. What happened after the park opened and what I learned over all these years of working at the nature park. So it didn't work. What do I have to do? Ah, that worked. Okay, so here's a little schematic of the nature park so that I can orient you a little bit. Along the top is a recreational path. Along the bottom is Pasadena Avenue. If you go on, I've been asked this today, if you go on Monterey Road kind of veers off to the left. And if you continue straight over the railroad tracks, it becomes Pasadena Avenue. And if you continue further down, there's the York Boulevard Bridge. And nobody knows where we are. I don't know why it's such a secret, but it is. Here's our park. The park is 4 acres. In this little map, I have points of interest because we've added little things to the park over the years. Oh, I can use up. There we go. So yeah, that helps. Here's the Arroyo Seco Channel. The York Boulevard Bridge is right there. And here's Pasadena Avenue. And this is our upper entrance, and you can just park up there and go. If you're driving on Pasadena Avenue and you come to the bridge, you've gone too far, turn around, which is not easy on York there. But anyway, that's where the park is. Okay. So the park has a whole big long history. It starts, you know, forever ago, really. But if you want to look at that piece of land, in the 1920s, there was a bond issued and the city bought all the land along the Arroyo Seco. It wasn't a flood control channel then, it was the Arroyo Seco. And there was supposed to be parkland all along there. And in later years, the channel was put in, the concrete channel was put in. And in the late 1990s, the city of South Pasadena, it's 100 acres that goes from Pasadena to Los Angeles. And in 1999, the city was prepared to sell this. At that time, it was 3 acres. We gained an acre recently. But they were going to sell the 3 acres. A school was going to be put there. And there were going to be some more playing fields. This was bought. I wasn't involved by environmentalist activists in the city. And I love this little poster because it reminds us that they didn't have Facebook or Instagram or email or MailChimp. And so they had phone chains, and they succeeded in saving the nature park, meaning the park, it became a park as opposed to becoming something else. So that was very exciting. I want to give you a little idea of what it looked like at that point. So this is 2002. What you're seeing in here is castor bean, weedy grasses. We had every weed that all of us, Roger, Jesse, you work in schools. Maybe you don't have all these weeds, but a lot of weeds. October 2004, park opens, ribbon cutting. Politicians are out there patting themselves on the back. Everything is great. And right here, I want to point this out. This is hydroseeded. Okay, so the park was put in, some native plants were put in. This central area of the park was hydroseeded with seeds of native perennials, shrubs, and annuals. So there you go. And then there was some planting in here and so on. So what happened next? This is the same area, the hydroseeded area. They did not hydroseed it with mustard, thistle, non-native thistle, and grasses. They hydroseeded it with real native plants. But we had some rain that year. It's a really degraded piece of land. And this is what it turned into. It was a mess. At the time, you asked Roger how he got involved. At the time, I was on a commission. I was working at California Botanic Garden, and I was on a city commission. And we also were some kind of adopt a park kind of thing. And I became involved in 2006. Because I was really concerned. You know, there were a lot of people who didn't want this to become a nature park because it was a piece of land. It was always used, land's always used, but it's scary to people. I'm not really sure exactly why, but I mean, there is homeless and there are things going on down there. It's kind of out of the way. So in 2005, it was looking really bad, and I became involved at that point. And for the rest of the talk, I'd like to just tell you what I learned over the years doing this. So here it is with all, right now, if you look at it, it looks like this too, but it's encelia, it's bush sunflower, not mustard, which, oops, I want to go back. Can I go back? Yeah. So there we go. Down here, I'm a little nervous. I haven't talked in a long time. So what have I learned? Down here, you can see we have buckwheat. And yes, for our park too, buckwheat is amazing. It really takes over. So how did we get there? Well, the first thing I'd like to say is mulch can be your friend. I don't say mulch is your friend, because this is, as in everything in horticulture, everything is debated and all that. But this area that was hydroseeded was really, it didn't have any soil really. It was used for dumping. They dumped construction waste there. There was no really decent soil there. So we had the city bring us some truckloads of mulch. There they are. And then we spread it by hand. And I will point out my husband right here. There he is. He helps out occasionally, but when he does, it's really awesome. So this is back in 2009. We spread the mulch, and it was important there. We needed to do this. We had to get on top of the weeds. We had to get something to plant into. The next thing I learned, my idea was at this point, was that we were going to deal with the weeds, get rid of the weeds, and then we were going to plant. This was very naive. This is not how it goes. It is weed, plant, weed, 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 plant, weed, 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 plant. That's what it is. This is a picture from 2010. Those are Occidental College students, and we're using coastal sage scrub plants in the center of the park. And that whole thing was such an education for me, because, you know, like to instruct them, it's like, oh, you dig a hole and you put the plant in. No, they don't really get that. It was more than that, but that's another talk. The next thing I learned is that you use really tough plants. These are coastal sage scrub plants. They are used to disturbance and therefore they will succeed. And what I was after were, this is mostly buckwheat that you're seeing in here. And what I was, oh, except here is a black walnut, which we did not plant, it volunteered. We have nice black walnuts in the park. So these tough plants want to be there. And if you can control the weeds, they will naturalize, meaning they will seed. If the weeds take over, their seeds just can't really get a grip and grow. I learned that timing is everything. This is castor bean. And castor bean is not that hard. You know, when it's huge, it's hard to get out. But if you get it out and then it starts reseeding, it makes these seedlings that are really very gratifying to pull out, because you know, if you pull them out, they're not going to get 6 feet tall and all over the place. So you pull one out and you accomplish something. So timing is important, and you want to get them before they set seed. For us, I'm so jealous, Roger. You had an irrigation system. We did too. $250,000. We got an irrigation system when that park was put in, and it broke within months. It was a very complex irrigation system. Nobody knew how to use it. And the sprinkler heads were always breaking and leaking. We asked the city to turn it off, but we maintained for a number of years. I actually would connect a hose on Pasadena Avenue to a water fountain. It had a spigot on the water fountain. I dragged these hoses down into the park. That was horrible. So we convinced the city to give us these little, these were in the ground already. This is a quick coupler, which we take home with us. So we open this thing up, we put the coupler in, we turn it. We have hoses, we don't use timers, we hand water. And we hand water for basically 1 to 2 years after we plant. If the plants are lucky, we do that because it's a lot of land there and it's a lot of work. So that's basically how we've been doing it all these years. And we try to water deeply by hand. It means we keep our eyes on the plants. We know what's going on. More recently, meaning last month, we put in, a few months ago, we put in a demonstration garden. And as such, I wanted to put in a demonstration irrigation system. And so what can you do if you want to grow native plants and you're just starting out and you've taken out your lawn? And I really like this system. So what we did was we put in some PVC pipes. There's a connection which allows us to drag a hose from that spigot up top. We drag it down, put it into this connection, and then it goes to 4 zones. Those zones, the PVC is connected to 1/2-inch poly tubing, which then has spaghetti tubing coming off of it, and little emitters which go to the new plants. The point is we will be able to weed while we water, because this is not on any timer. We do it by need. We check to see what it needs, and then we water these different zones individually as needed. So that's kind of like a demonstration garden, and we had people out there so that they could help us put it in and learn how to do something like this. I'm going to put more signage about that irrigation system out there. We'll talk about signage in a few minutes. So the other thing I learned is you really need to let your volunteers shine. I don't do this alone. These 4 pictures highlight 4 people who have been working in the nature park for years with me, and I could not have done it without them. The important thing here is that each one came with their own ideas as to what they wanted to do. And a lot of times I thought they were kind of crazy. You know, like I'm going to point out Randy down here from B of A, who's been working with us since 2016 or 17. And he brings in a lot of volunteers. He's a rock man. He's really not a plant man. He's a rock man. And he has put rocks moved rocks all around this nature park, built our labyrinth. This is his passion, and he's great. He brings in a lot of people. So, with each of them, Monica over here, her idea was butterfly garden. She worked with a Girl Scout. And this is what she wanted to do. When we were putting in the milkweed, some of the techniques we were using, I was a little skeptical about. We've had marginal success with this, but you have to let your volunteers learn with you. And oftentimes I'm extremely surprised because I think I know the answer and I'm wrong. So there you go. In our park, it's important, and all of these areas, all these native plants, even your garden at home, you need to help people understand what you're doing. People are always telling me, well, there's a dead tree in there. Can't you take the dead tree down? Turns out there's a hummingbird in that dead tree every time I look up. So I can't take that down. We use the rocks, we line the paths, we put in a labyrinth to help people understand that this is an area that we are actually maintaining in some way. We're trying to make it a learning experience. This is relatively new. And so you see, this is very kind of funky looking, our little sign here. My husband made those. But I need to use really cheap materials. We have we have a lot of vandals down there, believe it or not. There's no fence or anything. People just go in there, things happen. So we need to use very cheap material. And these are just laminated pieces of paper that I print out. And the idea is that we're going to change it around a lot and have new information coming out. And I will mention at this point, is to Carol Bornstein's question about labeling the plants, I'm on it. We're going to do this. I got a label maker. We're going to do this. I'm going to put it on those little aluminum signs that Theodore Payne gives out during their garden tour, and use the laminator, which is weather tight. And again, cheap. Somebody steals them, somebody breaks them, bends them, not a problem. We put in a new one. So getting the word out is critical if you want to run a program like this. I do Instagram, Facebook, MailChimp. I have a website, weedingwildsuburbia.com. The tab is Nature Park. You can find out about the history. All these presentations are on that website. I have cards. And we're in the newspaper fairly often. The project, though, is really about people, right? And bringing them in, bringing in kids, bringing in adults. And we've worked at this so hard for so long. And to this day, people come up to me and go, you mean there's a nature park in South Pasadena? It just blows my mind. But we keep working 17 years and we're still going. So, just to review and to save time, I won't read these over, but I will read the last line. If you decide to do this, whether it's Rogers Park, I'm sure whatever Gabi gets into here, and Jesse, you're in it for the long haul. You don't put it in and walk away. Walking away means the weeds will come back and they will win. My hope is that the long haul means that we won't be weeding quite so much, but I haven't seen that yet. And this year was a brutal year. This is what this is the York Boulevard Bridge. There's the channel that you see. And here's a picture from, I think, the 1930s. And I keep this picture in my mind because when you do this kind of thing, you want to remember what you're going for, what matters, what you want it to look like in the end. And you just see me, here I am with my little hat on and my bouquet. Someday. Since this will be posted, here are some resources. I've written about the nature park in Fremontia and also in Pacific Horticulture. And you can get on a MailChimp announcement to join our park cleanups. So now, I think we have a few minutes for questions.
We're gonna mess with the computers.
Okay.
Stay by the microphone so that everyone can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, so Margot asked in chat, who did the work to clear the land and plant the native plants?
Okay, so the original work, interesting question. The original work was done by MRCA, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy /MRCA. I think they subcontracted it out. The city got a grant for $250,000. They hired them and They did the original work. And what I would say is, I wasn't super happy about all the plantings. The rock work was gorgeous. The rock work was really very beautiful, and I still love what they did in that way. But that's the answer to that question. Yep.
Does the city or the city parks department work with you at all?
Okay, the question was, and I used to have a slide on this. The question was, does the city or the Parks Department work with us? A little. They're having a meeting today, so I don't think they'll hear me. But in any event, I'll be honest with you. It's been difficult. Oops, it's been difficult. So what I want the city to do for us and with us is deliver mulch, which they do upon request, take care of homeless encampments that come all the time, take out the kind of garbage we can't take out, which is homeless encampment type garbage. You know, in the future, we'll deal with the paths. We haven't been successful in most of these things. It takes a lot of requests on my part, which means I think, see, the city has money allocated for maintenance of that park, and we're doing it for free. So I think they should be going down there weekly to look for these problems. That is not happening very much, but I hold forth hope that it will. So they know me, I know them. They give me permission to do this, right? I run monthly cleanups. We're down there. I plant whatever I want. We do all kinds of things. So we're getting there. It's a work in progress.
Financially.
Oh, I'm sorry, say again. Financially, how are we paying for them? Yeah, I sourcing, I wish I didn't, Roger does. But you know, we're really right in the middle of the city. So we've been buying our plants from growers like El Nativo and other growers. But as far as the money for our plants, a lot of that actually came from the city council as discretionary funds, a few $1,000s here and there. We also do we don't do fundraising. I don't do fundraising either. But we do raise funds, we do get money. And I work with a nonprofit called South Pasadena Beautiful, and they have a nature park fund. So if somebody wants to donate and take a tax credit, they can give it to South Pasadena Beautiful, and then they send me a report. I send a thank you. And it's good because I don't, again, want to run a nonprofit with all the regulations on that. So that's how we do it. And we work with very little budget. I don't really like to have money. There's always responsibilities and obligations that go with money, go hand in hand with money. So we don't use a lot of money. We don't need a lot of money, and it works out. I think we have time for one more, and then it's someone else's turn.
There's a question in the chat of, do you own land, the land, or is there a lease?
Okay, do we own the land or is there a lease? 100 acres along that channel was purchased in the 1920s through a bond by the city of South Pasadena. It is owned by South Pasadena. The golf course is owned by South Pasadena. They were going to sell this piece of land, but they didn't. So it is completely owned by the city. So answer to that one. So thank you very much for having me. And it's exciting to hear about his project.
Thank you, Barbara. And next we have another chapter board member, and Jesse Chang. And Jesse says he stumbled into native gardening, as many of us do, through school projects, and had well, I think I'll let him tell you about this, but he has been doing native plants in school gardens, which this is not easy. I know from experience. Since 2015, so many years, and he's gonna share his successes and how he did it with us.
Well, thank you, everybody. Yeah, I think as Orchid intimated, why schools? Do I need to?
Yeah. Here's how you're showing up.
Oh, okay. So I need to be like this. I'll just turn this. Am I supposed to look in here or?
Yeah, well.
Oh, okay, all right. But
Oh,
it's weird because I'm kind of in person, but I'm looking at, okay, anyways. So, so, so I started, am I clicking or am I arrowing?
Should be the same. Should be- I think it worked.
Or is it, yeah, maybe down? Here? Okay, here. So I always use this quote. This writer talked a lot about how the way we teach ecological education to students is oftentimes very brutal, right? Hey, global warming, pollution, you know, what are you going to do, right? Like climate change, all these things. And I remember asking my daughter when she was younger, is like, yeah, is that how you learn that? She said, yeah, it's basically like, and so you learn like you can't really do anything about these global problems. And he was suggesting that what happens inadvertently, you know, well meant, you know, to kind of tell you what's going on in the world is that children may end up dissociating with the environment because it's like, well, it's terrible. So why would I want to be involved in something that's so terrible, right? And so he talks a lot about, and this quote really just kind of, and I think it resonates with the way I grew up in the woods and in New England, is that I need to kind of attach myself, right? Like have a healthy, loving attachment to nature first before you ask, you know, these students, these children, the next generation to care for it, right? You have to have that connection. And then for my kids growing up here in LA, it's like they don't have as much of that connection. It's not as readily available as when I could just walk outside and go into the woods. And so I really want, and looking at a lot of the public schools in particular, you kind of think, yeah, they really are not necessarily very conducive to connecting with nature in a way that creates healthy attachments and love for it. And so this is the site. It's about 62 feet by 168 feet or so. It's between two academic wings. And as you can see, it was mostly weeds and there's a lot of puncture vine. You can see it kind of coming out there. So that was really fun taking out. So we selected this site just because it was kind of a clean, sort of a blank palette, so to speak. And when I had talked to older generations, they said, yeah, ever since that school got put in, there's never been anything put in there. There are ideas about putting like palm trees or even just putting asphalt with some benches for the kids to sit on. You know, so I'm glad that those ideas didn't go through. And so it was basically launching off of another larger school project that I did at another school district. And I talked to the superintendent and she gave the green light, and that kind of helped open up a lot of doors. One of the things I learned is working with junior high students for almost 3 years, like once a week and some Saturdays, probably not the best way to install a garden. They were great, but you know, it was just very slow. And it was like, I think towards like after year 2, the superintendent was like, so when is this garden gonna be finished? And so yes, we did get it done in 2018. We had our ribbon cutting but you know, ribbon cuttings are just the start, right? And so we were installing like a dry arroyo here. And I had to kind of start here and work my way all the way to the asphalt, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to like move anything large, you know, into, so the older section is like where these boulders are. And then as you move out, it's not as old. And so this is after installations, plantings. I think I had just read that book about designing California gardens by plant communities, the Middlebrook one. And so that kind of helped influence me. Of course, you know, this is also like an east-west, so you had like a very shady north side and a very hot south side. So obviously planting appropriately was very important. And my conceit was the wildflower meadow made up of purple needlegrass. This was 2020, and somehow their spring break always coalesces when it's at the peak of the wildflowers. And in particular for this shot, this was right after the shutdown in 2020. So I was the only one who got to enjoy It's really sad, but and we did plant some elderberries to kind of anchor. This is, and then my coup de grace was being, after about a year-long process, being able to get a vernal pool installed, and did this with the help of somebody who worked for an organization, another nonprofit called Save the Frog. She actually learned, you know, how to install these artificial wetlands. And so that was the first year, you know, very bare. Those are my kids. Over the years, we have flowering quillwort that's basically kind of dominating now. I had it seeded from, if anyone knows George Nanaski at Elizabeth Learning Center in Cudahy. He has a vernal pool that he helped. He basically spiked my pool with certain species, vernal pool species, native vernal pool species, both flora. Whoops, both flora and. I'll go this way. I know. How do I go back? Oh no, that's still going forward. Oh, here we go. Arrows do work. Okay. So the Southern Tower Plant I haven't gotten established. That's maybe for the next vernal pool that I want to do. But we did get fairy shrimp. As I said, the flowering quillwort has taken over, and as well as some a small vernal pool epilobium. This is during the flowering phase as the pool's drying up. I treat it with mosquito larvae. I had the vector control come during the winter in the rainy season to just kind of periodically check it. Have a clean bill because there was always concern about that. We do have also a patch of milkweed, narrowleaf milkweed, a hummingbird section. These are some of the native bees and that took pictures of. Cal State LA had a professor in a plant physiology, and they would come every year. They're coming on Monday, come every year to have their students teach, you know, our students about plants. And each year they've been like, okay, yeah, we're going to use plants from the garden. We really want to use plants from the garden. So that's something that they've been doing over the years. I've also connected with about art. If some of you probably know about the installations by Studio Tutto and Theodore Payne the past year. And so I was able to get a grant to put more arts in there. And so they made their seed spire, which is, you know, basically earthen, like pressed earth that they jammed with tons of wildflower seeds. And so we had students from the art club help with that. They've been watering it almost every day. Well, I mean, this year they didn't have to water it that much. So that's after they opened it up, about 5 days afterwards. And in the midst of the wildflower. And we also got part of the grant was also for them to design a mural based on the plant species and some of the observations that we've made over the years. And so we got the art class, one of the art classes, to do that, and you can see how they're talking to them about like the design and like how connecting what plants were being utilized in the design. And so they painted it. I think this was last week when they finished it. So, and here's some and kind of like with Roger, like, you know, just trying to like, hey, how do we highlight some of the ones that are natives that are very much local to Southern California. I don't know why this one's not used as much, but it's been pretty bulletproof, except for some that kind of browns out in the middle, and our white sage just taking over. So over the years, it's very similar to some of the things that were said here. You know, it's for the long haul. I definitely probably overplanted. So I think each subsequent project, I'm always trying to like pull back because I don't know, especially in this place where it was pretty heavy clay. So it's very rich, you know, nothing else was growing in it and stuff just got big and you can't see it like, but there's all the air conditioning units, all the waters actually go straight into the ground. So the black sages that are along the wall on that south side, they never go dormant. They're always green probably because of that, you know, extra moisture that goes in there. Yeah, sometimes I wonder, is a meadow really worth it? Because it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Yeah, I think as I replace plants, just thinking about more evergreen, you know, like what's gonna give a little bit more, less, you know, the Encela looks terrible, you know, so fortunately, that's not like right along the path, you know, it's kind of a little bit more in the middle. And then just at each subsequent project, I'm always thinking about like, how do I get more input, more ownership so that this is not just like a personal vision, but something that we can all share as a school community and as a community at large. And so that's just one of the locations. And then making this, the vernal pool can also be used for a great group shot. And thank you.
Pool filled by rainwater or?
Yes, we have staged it at times. Like, so for last year when it was on the Theodore Payne garden tour, I didn't want to stage it, but then one of the champions at the school, the science teacher, was really like, I think it needs to be filled, so he filled it. And we actually got vernal, and we actually had fairy shrimp pop up, so it was great. Yeah, yeah, I don't think he treated it. I mean, he just stuck it in there and filled it up, and it looked great. And so even though it was like in April, it worked out fine.
Did you have any ambition?
That was the initial intent, but oh, sorry. The question was, are there any amphibians? I tried to import some toads, but I don't think they made it. And so when I talked to the Save the Frogs person, she's like, just build it and see if they come. They have not come yet, but it's in Rosemead. It's very urban, you know. It's like I don't know, like some of those sightings of like Western toads, I'm like, I don't know if that really happened. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
You know, the teachers have incorporated that space with their teaching.
Yes, over time, and this is where, oh, sorry. The question was, have teachers started incorporating it more? And the short answer is yes. Like at first, it was just one of the science teachers was really, I mean, he's always championing the garden, defending against the detractors. So he tells me about some of the gossip, you know, in the teachers' lounge. But not only, so he's obviously used it for his class, but then some of the other science teachers are starting to utilize it now. One of the science teachers is actually working with Jen Aguilar from CNPS to do a sign project. Actually, they finished it. So they did like 6 weeks with some of the students, like a cohort of students who would actually do the research. They're actually going to do the writing. And so we're going to actually have some good, solid, you know, I kind of call it passive education, but it'll kind of highlight and show that, yeah, this is intentional. This is not like some wild, crazy space, you know, so. Oh, yes.
Maybe, the high school is open on the or the middle school.
Just, you can talk to me afterwards. They gave me the key, so I can go in and, you know, I don't think the police will see us either, so.
You know, I've been building like stormwater, filtration system, with lines, application trenches to capture stormwater.
Yeah.
Cleaning up.
Yeah, I mean, this one had a liner, and it was we just had to make sure it was graded. So before we actually started the project, the district actually came through and regraded it so that it all go out towards that kind of big asphalt section. So when we installed the vernal pool, like, you know, our resident expert was just making sure that it would just, you know, be enough so that any excess would actually drain out towards that asphalt. Yeah, that was not they never told us that was a requirement or anything like that. And we haven't had any issues with flood. We actually had to solve some of the sort of minor flooding issues that would come because there are a few gutters, but a lot of it's just dripping straight down. And for one section, there's like, the drain is, the gutter drain is coming out, and then there's an electrical panel like right in front of it. So that was just, yeah, I didn't design that, so. All right, well, thank you.
And last but not least, we have our own Gabi McLean. Gabi has been a past president of our chapter, and I think every other position. And she's been the past treasurer of the state board of CMPS as well. And she's worked at Eaton Canyon, helping teach the docent classes with Klemm. And they have lots of botany and all the plants of the San Gabriel Mountains on their Nature at Hand website. If you never have been there, that's a great place to start. And I will let her tell you about her newest project.
Hi, and welcome. This is my title slide, and I'm sorry, I didn't put my name, date. I forgot. All that was in my head was Santa Fe Dam. That's all that was in my head. So we started that process a year ago. Cliff and I like to walk at that place, and we were just impressed not only with the beauty but also with the star thistle. So we wanted to weed, and we were afraid to weed because we don't know who owns this place. Are you allowed? And then we just said, well, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So we started weeding, and we filled up some bags, and we wanted to talk to the staff, but they said, no, don't talk to us. It's the Renaissance Fair. Nothing goes on during the Renaissance Fair. Well, the Renaissance Fair ends when the weeds are all dry and, you know, you can't weed anymore. So anyways, we started up, and I started looking at the history of this place. And in preparation for giving you this presentation, I did some more research, and this is what came out of it. So why this is not working? Yeah, I did. You have to click. Okay. So where in the heck is it? So this for your urban street people, you want to know streets, right? It's at the southeast corner of the 210 and the 605 freeway junction. It's in the city of Azusa, which is a tiny city with a few hundred or a few thousand. Irwindale, what did I say? Oh, because I was looking at Azusa. Okay. It's in Irwindale, and Irwindale is a very small city, industrial city with a few thousand residents, and this beautiful, beautiful area, natural area. So most people don't even know where Irwindale is. But it's also part of Azusa. More people are familiar with Azusa, Duarte, Baldwin Park. And for natural history or natural geology, it's part of the San Gabriel River watershed. And what you see here, let me see if the cursor works. Here it is. It's San Gabriel River, comes down here. Here are the reservoirs. And it's all the way down here, Santa Fe Reservoir. I don't know if you can read the descriptions. So this is Azusa, West Covina down here, Pasadena way over there. So this area that I'm talking about lies more in the eastern San Gabriel Valley.
What is the red line?
The red line was the national forest. So historically, that area was a floodplain. The San Gabriel River, as you've seen in the previous chart, enters the valley. It's in Azusa. And this picture is from 1938. At that time, the three dams that rain in the river were already built, but it was just at the beginning. So it used this whole area used to periodically flood and was a wetlands all the way down to Whittier. And most people don't realize what, you know, the San Gabriel Valley had wetlands, but it's true. They proved it. I put it in the references where I found that. So I didn't make it up. Also in 1939 is another picture where they decided they needed to build a dam because even they needed to build Santa Fe Dam. The pictures that you see here is a bridge, a footbridge. I didn't know it was called Puente Largo, a railway bridge. It's now a footbridge that crosses the San Gabriel River. And that's how huge it was. And that was after the dams. So when the picture that you just saw is from, let's see, from right here. It's this section here. And the highlighted section or the outline section is what they call the Santa Fe Dam Basin. And it actually, the dam is down here, right on Arrow Highway or Live Oak. Well, it's Arrow Highway right there. And the river is the blue line. Up here is Azusa. And here's Fish Canyon and here's Duarte. Then we have Foothill Boulevard crosses the river here. And the 210 freeway crosses the river here. And we have catch basins all along the river on both sides, and lots of mining going on along the river, unfortunately. And inside the catch basin, once they built the dam, they also allowed for the reservoir. This section down here is the reservoir. Nobody calls it a reservoir, they call it the lake. And this whole section is prepared to be flooded. So the dam goes really from up here, parallel to the river, then crosses the river here, goes along Arrow Highway, and then up north. And this section here is highly industrial with foul smelling industrial factories. So when you go walking in Santa Fe Dam and this area, it often smells bad. But the birds nevertheless come. So when I was talking that we were walking here, we were mainly walking in the area of the nature center, which is about here. They have a nature trail there, and along the river, all along the river, through here, on top of the dam, and then continue along the river is a bike trail. So that gives you an idea of the area, and that whole area is, I don't know how many 100 acres. Okay, never mind. So the dam project started in 1941, was completed in 48, and the periodic flooding has been of the area has been controlled ever since. So the whole area is not what it used to be, and it's changed its character. Nevertheless, here is how it looks. This is how it looked in 2004. You see the bridge here in the back. That is that footbridge in Duarte. And here's the same area. This is a picture from the footbridge looking northeast up the river just a few days ago at the end of March, which when it was the water was released due to the heavy rains, and I would say half of the riverbed was flooded. And this is another view from the top of Van Tassel, not the top of Van Tassel Trail, but from Van Tassel Trail, which starts in Duarte. And you see here the lake, the dam, you see up here where the bikes go, the dam wall, the actual dam where, you know, the water goes through is on the right side of the screen. These are some catch basins, and that's the 210 freeway. And the river goes down here. You don't see it in blue because there's no water in it, but you see the coastal sage scrub that's growing in the river. And that's a view of the lake. This is looking east with Mount Wilson here in the back, and this white building is City of Hope in Duarte. And over here you can see, this is actually there in the lake are actually some islands. There are some willows, and you always see some interesting birds. They are like double-breasted cormorants and great egrets and sometimes white swans. Lots of waterfowl, sorry. So what makes this place special, even though with all that changes that it has occurred, is the habitat that it provides. And how does this look? Well, they have different plant communities in the area, and basically 4 major ones. One of them, I wouldn't even call a plant community, but it is, I guess, is to maintain the ornamental area here, south of the lake, that looks like a regular city park. Then a ruderal, which is the yellow parts, which is means basically weedy. And people think it's nothing there, but you'll be surprised. There is still some habitat in that weedy area. Then willow and riparian is really close to the dam down here and all along the actual river, which is kind of surprising because it looks also very weedy and at times has been very weedy, but it also has been maintained. And the rest of the area, which is this olive green, is coastal sage scrub. And that's the area that we mainly have accessed and walked in, and I'm going to talk about. So these are some pictures of the other plant communities. The weedy area still has willow, and the weedy area had some milkweed. And this whole area that you see right here on the left picture has been flooded in these last weeks. but it doesn't mean that it's gone, you know, wetlands, they're wet and then they become dry and they have value, habitat value. Then the riparian or Salix exigua shrublands, that's the narrowleaf willow. But they also, which is along the river and near the dam, they also have red willow and black willow and some are royal, some mule fat. So, but it's that that association that's common there, and we have interesting birds there. So this is the tip. I love this picture because it's really the typical coastal sage scrub that we find in that area. What is a little bit different than most other coastal sage scrub areas is that they have some shrubs that are really big. And that's because it hasn't been flooded or disturbed for 100 years. So the plants really have been able to grow and grow and grow and grow. So some of the major plants, I'm just going through here pretty fast. Lemonade berry, sugar bush, laurel sumac, and California buckwheat is that low-growing white stuff here that's in flower, and scarlet larkspur, which you can find every year there, especially after fires, but even without fires, it's very prominent there. We have or had California juniper there, which was naturally, which was considered rare or is considered rare. And the reason why I say was is because after a fire, we haven't found it again, so we don't know what's happening there. Now, cactus, they're choya. There's choya growing there. It's not the desert, it's coastal sage scrub, but that choya is all over the place and it is gorgeous. You can call it cane choya or valley choya. And if you look for the botanical name, you know, if you look back to records, it has changed names at least 3 times. So the current botanical name is Cylindropontia bernardina. It was Cylindropontia californica variety Parkeri, whatever, I'm not going to get into it. So the reason why this choya is so important is because it's the home of the cactus wren. And this is a cactus wren nest. And here's the cactus wren enjoying some little candelabra flowers. And you can, I don't know if you noticed, but they have nesting material in their beaks. Here's the more typical coastal sage scrub with low-growing plants, and you could see 2 different kinds of cactus here. Besides the choya, we also have the prickly pear. So this is the flower of the valley choya. Another plant that you find all over the place is the golden currant. And everybody that plants a garden says golden currant is good for understory. Well, it might be good for understory, but in Santa Fe Dam, it's out in the sun and it's doing great. There's the prickly pear, and the only one that people usually mention is Opuntia littoralis, but I'm pretty sure there are different species there because they look all different. So I haven't been able to identify them or find an expert who can identify them. You could see all the different flowers. They have different colors in their, not only in their petals, but also in their pistil and stamens and stigmas. just gorgeous. And they're going to flower. They're going to come and flower like end of April, May. So it's a beautiful time to go visit. We have Dudleya lanceolata, lanceleaf, live forever. And you find them mainly in the cactus. I think it's every place else, somebody either eats them or steals them or something, but the cactus protects them. And one of my favorites, the ground pink, we've got fields of them in spring. It's almost done now. Lots of popcorn flower and sun cups. And of course, all the plants wouldn't be nothing without the creatures that live in them, right? Well, the creatures need the plants. So we find the coyotes, they are active there and they don't do anything. We see them and they're fine. Lots of birds. Let's see, go back to the birds. We have a rattlesnake too, and we have amphibians, reptiles and amphibians, 5 species of frogs and toads, 7 species of lizards, 8 species of snakes, believe it or not. And 2 of those reptiles are species of special concerns. One is the horned lizard. It's very hard to make out. They are very camouflaged. You see, here's the head, here's those little horns. That's the front leg, the back leg, and the tail just goes till here. So you have to really look very hard to find the lizard. And the coastal whiptail. The reason why we still find the horned lizard here, the Blainville's horned lizard, is because they feed on harvester ants, and that place has those harvester ants. And there are over 100 birds that have been observed and recorded. But you can find very, like on a regular day, you can easily find, 57 or so species of birds in any given day. There are birds of special concerns, and that's the Bell's vireo, willow flycatcher, and California gnatcatcher. But other birds that they are not listed, but they are rare in the county because of the rarity of that habitat can be found, which is mainly the cactus wren, the blue-gray gnatcatcher, Goring owl, and loggerhead shrike, rufous hummingbird, and there might be more. And this is not exhaustive. These are osprey and red-tailed hawk that we have observed. All the pictures are mine unless I say something that it's say to the effect that it's not. The cactus wren and thrasher, Cooper's hawk, enjoying the coastal sage scrub, and the birds of special concern, again, it's kind of a repetition. Bell's vireo, talked about that before, but what is interesting is that Mickey Long pointed me to a study that which is recent, which is very good. A lot of the information you find is years old or decades old. But this is a recent study, and it shows the location. And we have the willow, let's see, Bell's vireo is the blue. The pink is the California gnatcatcher, and the yellow is the willow flycatcher. So the willow flycatcher seems not to be nesting here, but the other two nest here. We do have more than 300 species of plants that are there. 200 of them, roughly speaking, are native. And we have a threatened plant species, CNPS 1B1 listed, Amisa hokelia, that Keo Morse just recently found when we were together on an exploring trip. Now, this is not my picture. This picture is taken from iNaturalist, but it's also a imperiled species, snails. And the reason why I'm mentioning all these, you know, we are plant people here, but it's the ecosystem that's important. And, you know, people ask me, well, why are you trying to protect a threatened species? Well, it's not really the threatened species that we are trying to protect. We're trying to protect the ecosystem. And it works together in ways that we haven't understood. And I mean people, including scientists who have studied that, because continue to make mistakes in trying to introduce or change the ecosystems. Okay. This is the Nature Center. And the good folks at the Nature Center that from the Conservancy, St. Gabriel Mountains Regional Conservancy that operate the Nature Center. And here they have a circle for the indigenous people, the Quiche. They come here and have ceremonies. It's right, you know, a few feet west of the Nature Center. And here's the nature trail, and where we invite people to come on walks. The Nature Center has weekly walks there. And here's my granddaughter picking golden currant. And we have some native grasses. I just wanted to point it out because everybody says there are no native grasses left. Well, there are some left, but it's almost negligible. You have to, but it's like, I tell people, you have to learn the poison oak and then you can touch everything else. You have to learn the native grasses and then you can pull everything else. The bike trail, big yuccas. Lately, there have been a lot of fires, and it is interesting to see the fire recovery in alluvial scrub, because normally it doesn't happen that often that you have fires in alluvial scrub. But yeah, the cactus resprouts, the scale broom resprouts. It's just amazing to see. It's all scale broom, resprouting scale broom. And then we have fire followers. That's in the areas where the weeds haven't come yet. We want to keep it that way, that they don't come. So you could see some areas look devastated after the fire, and you know, a year later, it looks great. And that's near the nature trail. These two pictures, same area. And we have a super bloom there, not every year, but more often than you think. These are sun cups. Yabasanta is in large areas. We have Yabasanta. Now, the threats that we have to that area comes from human activities. Don't ask me why. I'm just saying these are the things that we have observed. Road widening, earth moving, earth dumping, encampments and their aggressive removal, because they don't only take up the trash or their belongings or the rest of the belongings, but also they take up the adjacent vegetation. Frequent fires. Fire every 20 years wouldn't be a problem, but they are much shorter intervals. Construction, they have the Renaissance Fair, but they also, want to widen the road for whatever unknown reason. And that brings the weeds, it brings trash, vegetation gets damaged, and birds get disturbed, or other creatures that are breeding and get disturbed by the disturbance. And then we also have the long-term drought. We have seen effects of the long-term drought on larger trees that have just died in the last few years. Here's an example of road widening. Encampments they took out the cholla to make a fence, I assume. These are examples where they cleared the area after fires instead of leaving it, dumping whatever. And so the mustard moves in and all the weeds. The main grasses that we have to deal with is the brome, some fountain grass, but not as bad as in other areas, some pampas grass, multi-star thistle, and the mustard, of course, the filiary, and on the shrubs and trees is horehound, castor bean, tree tobacco, Peruvian pepper tree, they were all planted, and the cedar in the water ways. So I can go through these. I don't have much time, but that I used this information on the weeds for a weed workshop that we did, and that is available on our website to help people identify them. So we mainly look to attack the annual grasses, mustards, filiary, multi-star thistle, and the seedlings. Somebody explains really nicely how satisfying it is to do the castor bean, to pull the castor bean. And the other weeds we leave to the people that do the weed management and professionals, like Bill Neal and other companies. These are examples where the fire recovery didn't work as well as you've seen in the previous pictures because they were adjacent to areas that had already some weeds. So not only the natives didn't come back because the weeds came back first. So how can we support the natural habitat? That was the question that we asked ourselves. And our journey, I started with that in the first, before I even started, is we became in the area, and then we were trying to figure out what we can do. And we realized we have to work with the people that are responsible for that area, which is the county staff and the conservancy. And then we decided, okay, we want to do something about it and make a plan. And we were pointed to the Bradley method. And I like to thank Barbara and Orchid and other people who have pointed me in that direction, because I was about to give up and say, it's too big, what can we do? And I really like this approach where you don't focus on the big infestation that is too big. You know, I think the reason why Roger and Barbara have been so successful is because it's a small area and you can do something, you know, you have a beginning and end. This is a huge area, and what can a couple of volunteers do on it? But the Bradley method concentrates on small areas that you keep persistent and you let nature take its course. So you clear an area with weeds, and they're just supposed to start just like 12 foot. You clear it, and then you let the natives fill in. You just have to repeat, you know, every year you have to stick with it. It's not a 1-year project or a 5-year project. You have to stick with it. And here's just an example. Here's all the brome on the left, and on the right there's less vegetation but not bare dirt, because you leave the mulch, you leave the natural mulch on there. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to raise awareness and do and let people know what are the weeds and what are the good plants, because we noticed that staff and volunteers have taken, you know, the native plants thinking they were weeds. So we did some workshops, and we have some crew members. And we need more, please come and help. And this is another nice example of how it was before our weeding, full of brome. And this is after the weeding. You can see that they're actually native plants there. And our plans for the future are continue with the Bradley method, pulling weeds by hand, cutting off flowers and seed heads, and focus on the nature trail and the garden at the nature center. We're not going to go, at least not now, further out. We also want to contribute to documenting on what is there. So I'm encouraging everyone, if you read or not, to photograph flora and fauna at Santa Fe Dam and post it to iNaturalist and CalFlora, because that helps people, that the professionals, to understand what is there. And we want to continue to coordinate with the county, and still have to find the time when it's not the Renaissance Fair, because you can't talk to those folks when the Renaissance Fair is on. I have a list of references. And at last, I like to put out the invitation for you to get involved. To, you know, we have a lot of programs on native plant gardening, but not everybody has a native plant gardening. You know, you don't have the opportunity to have a piece of land, but you can get your piece of land in your community. We have, you know, from Sunland in, you know, in the west to, I think the school garden is in Rosemead, Jessup, right? South Pasadena and Santa Fe Dam, and we have that same same concept or same issues and problems and opportunity in Bonelli Park, which is further east. And I encourage you to get involved with your community, or find a park in your community. There are other parks around. You don't have to travel far, but you know, we can't solve we can't solve the world's problems, but we can do our own, our own garden, our own community. We can do something.